Can you hear me? Okay.
I'm really glad to meet him here. And also many familiar faces here, Shan and Ali, and then many more. So before and Sayyid Ubaidur Rahman will join us, I think at around within half an hour or so. He is one of the guest speakers today. So I'm getting into my topic, that is we are launching, and The Books International is launching two ebooks today to make it easily accessible in the Western world. One is Annihilation of Caste, which was written a long time ago, almost 100 years ago, 1936, when it was written by Baba Saheb Ambedkar uh, uh, for a meeting in Lahore. Jatpat Totak Mandal was organizing a meeting, and then he wrote this, and it was not allowed to be published there. By again, caste issues surfaced, and then they said, no, we can't allow you to speak here. Then on his own, he published that work. I mean, of course, he modified a little bit and then published this book. So this is a seminal work on caste system even now. I mean, there are debates, but South Asian caste system or Indian caste system, Ambedkar being from a Mahar caste in Maharashtra, which is a warrior kind of caste. They were in the British Army, and also they represented in other armies even prior to that. So he is from that caste, but they are the Dalits, and then he could realize in the early years of his life what a tough time he had to have because of the caste disadvantages. So he wrote this book in 1936 and in English. Then it was published by himself. Ambedkar himself, Baba Saheb himself published this book, and it is still a very, I think one should start with this book to learn what is the caste. I'm talking in terms of, I mean, our readers mostly will not be exposed to the horrendous caste system which is practiced here. So they can have this text as a beginner to get familiarized with the caste system. And people address him as an architect of the constitution most often, or a Dalit leader. In fact, I personally I disagree with these two points, because he was much beyond that. He was a leader, and he was a outstanding genius among the all leaders here. I mean, you can count on your fingers, such leaders from India who participated. I mean, fully was into politics. Of course, he was a chief architect of the constitution. No disagreement on that. And yes, he did a wonderful job by giving us a constitution on which we are still fighting for our freedoms. And he was a Dalit leader. Yes, he was, but he was much more than that. And his works are published by Maharashtra government first as writings and speeches in 17 volumes, which was later published by Ambedkar Foundation in Delhi. That's available. There are some important works among in those volumes. That is Caste in Hinduism, Pakistan or Partition of India, Buddha and his Dhamma. All these are very important works which comes under these 17 volumes. So this book challenges the caste hierarchy, and he calls it graded inequality which is present in Indian system. And he also questions the inherent injustice within the caste system, because caste system in itself is inherent. I'm not talking much about all that. I'm just introducing the books because we have people who are into this for many years and academicians into this. My knowledge as a publisher will be superficial in certain aspects of this anyway. So this is about, and it remains, this work remains a cornerstone of caste debates and discourses even now in India. There are different publishers doing this work, and they have published various versions of Annihilation of Caste in many languages as well. We too are trying to bring out Annihilation of Caste in global languages. We have already started with Malayalam. We have come out with English. We have come out with Italian. We have come out with Farsi also. We are working on many other languages as well to make it available in Canada and elsewhere. And this, to a final word, that it is a timeless manifesto, actually. This caste, Annihilation of Caste is a timeless manifesto which will help us to read and understand what is caste and how caste works in India and elsewhere. Because those who are traveling abroad, they travel with the caste mostly, because caste is being discussed everywhere right now in the United States, and recently in California, it was the legal authorities had issues with caste system, and they have and the human rights workers, they are also addressing caste system. There are many works which have recently come out on caste systems. So with this, I hope I have given you a few words on Annihilation of Caste. Coming to Tuhfatul Mujahideen. Tuhfatul Mujahideen, the word means, Tuhfa is in Arabic means a gift, and Mujahideen means warriors, fighters. So it is a gift for fighters written by, as Brother Suhail introduced, Sheikh Zainuddin Makhdoom II. It is a 500-year-old, almost 500-year-old text written in Malabar when Sheikh Zainuddin was in Malabar, that is in Ponnani, which is a coastal city, town, which was a learning center as well at that time. And Zainuddin Makhdoom wrote this 500-year-old text in Arabic, because originally it was written in Arabic because Malayalam script was yet to be born at that time. So it was just after the arrival of the Portuguese in Calicut, 1400, late 1400s, and then he wrote this work. And this work is, as I told you, written in Arabic, and there are many translations, but we have chosen the translation of Hussein Nainar, who did it in 1930s again in London University. So that work was modified. We give footnotes and made it an ebook. So this work was first written in Arabic and then translated into English and translated into many languages. Around 4 translations are there in Malayalam even for Tuhfatul Mujahideen. It actually gives a detailed history, or you can say one of the earliest works which was done on the history or sociology or culture, politics, anything if you call it. I mean, you can start from, it is a starting point for all this on Malabar. So we thought we should start with this work, and this book gives you that kind of an opening for anybody who is trying to read on history of Malabar or politics of Malabar or colonial history of Malabar and so on. So as I told you, it is one of the earliest works on Malabar, and we have introduced the author in the beginning, and then also there are footnotes which will explain what the book, when the book calls some places, names of places, or certain words which we need some one glossary. So we have added that also to the work. So that will help the generations to understand what really happened in 1500s Malabar, where caste was practiced in again, he mentions about caste again in here in Tuhfatul Mujahideen also. So he writes on Muslims, Christians, and their interaction with different various castes and communities in Malabar. So one can understand what was going on, like if Al-Biruni wrote about India. When Al-Biruni writes about India, he writes about the Hindu practices at that time. Similarly, here too, you get the Muslim-Christian interaction, because the coast of Kerala was always open to the ocean. So you find a lot of people coming and going through. That interaction brought Islam and Christianity to Kerala. Before Brahminical supremacy came in Kerala, that is in the 8th century, around 8th century, as history says, 7th, 8th century, after the Chera dynasties. During Chera dynasties, it was mostly Buddhist and Jainist kingdoms. They were following Buddhism or Jainism at that time. And then later came the Brahminical supremacy that came almost in the late 7th and 8th century. At that time itself, Islam also had arrived in Kerala coast, Malabar coast. Similar to that, I mean, Christianity had arrived even before that. So all this, and Jewish tradition also you can see in Kerala, I mean, Malabar, the Malabar coast. So all these interactions one can understand from our Tuhfatul Mujahideen, written by Zainuddin Makhdoom II. Zainuddin Makhdoom the first was his grandfather, who has also penned a work on the arrival of Portuguese. I mean, during the arrival of Portuguese, he says they need to fight against them. So this legacy is continued by him. And also there is another work called Fathul Mubin, wherein his relative Qazi Muhammad explains about how Portuguese were defeated in a port near Calicut, which is called Chalium. There are many writings at that time. So, but Tuhfa is the most popular work. We thought that should be introduced there. So this book discusses early colonial invasion as well. I mean, the Portuguese invasion to Malabar. And Makhdoom encourages people to fight against the colonial transgressors at that time, invaders at that time. And this is about Tuhfatul Mujahideen. These are the two works which we have to introduce to the readers in an ebook format. I think I have covered this, and I thank you for patiently listening to me. I hand over to Brother Suhail for that.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ausaf. That was a very succinct summary and background of these two magnum opuses of respective authors. So next, without further ado, I would like to invite our first guest speaker, Professor Chinnaya Jangam. I would like to give a brief introduction. Professor Jangam is an associate professor in the Department of History at Carleton University, Ottawa, Canada. He holds MA in History from the University of Hyderabad and MPhil in Modern Indian History from Jawaharlal Nehru University, and a PhD from School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London. He was awarded the Felix Fellowship and Harry Frank Dissertation Fellowship for doctoral studies. Jangam was a postdoctoral fellow at International Center for Advanced Studies, New York University. His research focus is on social and intellectual history of Dalits in modern South Asia. His first book, Dalits and Making of Modern India, was published by Oxford University Press in 2017. Professor Jangam's articles have appeared in mainstream media, including Scroll in India and CTV Canada. So without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Jangam to give us a brief a talk on Dalit activism, history, and legacy of B.R. Ambedkar.
Thank you, Brother Suhail, and Jai Bhim and Salam Walaikum. And also happy Dalit History Month to you all. And before I start, I also want to remember what is happening in Gaza, and my heart goes for all of them. And I would like to pay my tribute to all those people, especially children who lost in the Gaza war. And I think, we should keep them in our prayers and our thoughts because, injustice anywhere in the world, injustice to everyone. So in that context, I would like to remember all those souls who are lost and thank you again. And it's a great privilege. And we live in a very testing times, particularly in the context of not only globally, but in the context of India, as we are going through another phase of general elections and the third term of Narendra Modi's is trying for third term. In this context, I think it is need of the time, and also it is more than ever that we need to have this sort of meetings and also discussions, and particularly the predicament of Dalits and Muslims in India is closely aligned. And unless we share not only in terms of persecution in the form of Brahmanical oppression, but also the prejudices and the kind of discrimination we face because of our food habits and because what we believe in and what we share. So in that context, I think I felt very privileged, and also it is like one of the very important initiative. And I would like to thank you all for this uh, idea of publishing books. I think this is where our struggles against fascism and oppression and casteism starts. Like as Ambedkar believed strongly, as Brother Ashwaf already said, that caste is a foundation on which the Indian civilization survives, and caste inequality needs to be fought. And that's why it's as rightly said, Annihilation of Caste is not just a book about caste, but also it's a manifesto for how to have a society, build a society which is democratic and egalitarian. So in this context, it goes beyond a particular reference to particular caste or particular this thing. In this context, we all who believe in democracy and egalitarianism have to embrace this book and spread the words about it. And that's why in this context, publication of this book into different languages is very, very important in terms of spreading an international awareness, and also particularly making people read about Ambedkar's political philosophy and his relevance to building a democratic India. So in this context, I would like to say few things in the what actually happens in the context of what I am doing in the Canadian context, both as an academic and also an activist, where we are trying to build a strong foundation in terms of Dalit Muslim Alliance, and where we are very closely associated with the Canadian Council for Indian Muslims, National Council for Canadian Muslims. So in this context, we see very important our liberation is aligned with brothers from Muslim background, Christianity, and also Adivasi backgrounds. So in this context, what we see is that these books, particularly as brother pointed out about very important book we written in Arabic. Tufat, I can't pronounce it, but I'm sorry for that. But these early Portuguese, in the context of Portuguese arrival and the resistance against Portuguese colonialism by the indigenous Muslim communities is a very fascinating thing. And it was written, in Arabic, not because, any other thing, because Arabic is the language of, oceans, and Arabic is the language, lingua franca of the trading world. So in this context, what happens is that, if you are traveling anywhere in Indian Ocean in pre-modern context before 15th century or even up to 17th and 18th century, you need to have Arabic. Like if you look at Chinese travelers or travelers from Southeast Asia and whoever entered into Indian Ocean world at that time were writing in Arabic. And in this context, it's very interesting to see the way in which these texts, resistance to Portuguese colonialism or Western colonialism, begins much before 19th century by the indigenous communities, particularly Muslims. And if you come into Madras Presidency, like places like where present day Telugu state starts, we had this resistance tradition starting all the way going back to 17th and 18th centuries. So what you see is that we have this very interesting indigenous resistance forms which happened against the Western colonization. So in this context, one has to remember two things about Portuguese rule in India. It has brought, one thing is that, in introducing slavery to the modern world, it has used caste system as a very important frame through which to reorganize the world. Therefore, what happens is that, the slave trade and also the making of racialization in North America, in Americas or rest of the settler colonial states was the beginning with the Portuguese colonization. And the another important aspect, about Portuguese colonization in India is that the whole idea of Islamophobia begins with them. This whole idea of, they are the one who use this language of crusades and start portraying Muslims as, different, and Muslims are being the enemies of, civilization. So in this context, what we see is that, these indigenous texts which have articulated a radical alternative and radical movements against the Portuguese colonization and also illuminated on the indigenous context are very, very fascinating. So in this context, I think, these are very, very apt texts. One is, the Dalit Manifesto, particularly in terms of annihilation of caste, which provides a succinct and also very critical overview of what actually should be done, like, in political philosophy. One, there are two things we have to do. One, explain the context and also the situation and also the solution. I think this is what the lifelong aim of Ambedkar. At one level, I think, while being a political activist and also political philosopher, one of the important things he did is that, he tried to provide this manifesto through which basically what are the ways in which you can annihilate caste system and building a democratic India. And I think this 1936 annihilation of caste is a very fundamental text, foundational text in terms of, having this clarity in terms of anti-caste manifesto. Therefore, what happens is that, because it cracks at the foundations of inequality, which is the basis of Brahmanical Hinduism. That's one of the reasons why even the moderate Hindus could not tolerate the contents of the text. So in this context, what I want to see is that, the interconnection between the resistance to colonialism and also the resistance to internal colonialism and inequity are very important. And these are the ways in which I think social justice activism and social justice emancipation starts. So in this context, I see that, these, people who are overseas, like people like us, like, taking this initiative, particularly at one level, in places like Canada, we have very strong Hindu right-wing forces which are organizing and trying to lobby with the Parliament of Canada and also different provinces to, have this whole idea of Hinduphobia as a language to, victimize people and so, silence people who are speaking against human rights violations and injustice, also caste-based violence against Dalits and Adivasis, and also the persecution of Muslims in India. And in this context, I think it's very important that, as a diaspora, we have to play and amplify the voices and also articulate these sort of, intellectual and political ideas. And I think reading and also the intellectual publishing is a very important beginning. And also I see that this is a very important foundation to have this Dalit Muslim, not just political alliance, but an intellectual foundation in terms of what kind of India we would like to see and what kind of world we want to build. And in this context, I see lots of, power in this, and I feel very grateful for you all for inviting me, and I feel very honored and to be part of, this group. And also, and I think, this is the beginning, and we have long way to go together, and we will be in this together as brothers, sisters, and also friends and allies. And Jai Bhim again, I would like to thank you everyone for this opportunity.
Thank you, Professor Jangam, Jai Bhim. As someone who went to university in India, I do agree that the Muslim Dalit Alliance should go on, not only India, but even here in Western countries. And we should, like Professor emphasized, we should join hands with other like-minded communities from other religion and also the indigenous community in Canada. We like Professor Ausaf, Dr. Ausaf mentioned, we are also in process of bringing out more topics, and one in the plan is definitely the indigenous communities in Canada, which is also not much, we won't find much academic data which is brought out to the public. And we are right now in ebook format, but based on the demand, I know we all have our preferences, but nothing can replace a physical book. So based on the demand, we are also planning to print on demand. So having said that, I would like to introduce our next guest, Sayyid Ubaidur Rahman, who is joining us all the way from New Delhi. Sayyid Ubaidur Rahman is a New Delhi-based author. He has written extensively on medieval and modern Indian history. His recent publications include Peaceful Expansion of Islam in India, Forgotten Muslim Empires of South India, Bahmani Empire, Madurai, Bijapur, Golconda, and Mysore Sultanates, Biographical Encyclopedia of Indian Muslim Freedom Fighters, Ulama's Role in India's Freedom Movement with focus on Reshmi Rumal Tahreek. All his works are acclaimed and garnered huge appreciation. He has written op-eds for leading Indian and foreign newspapers, which includes the Hindustan Times, Economic Times, SIFI, NewsClick, Arab News, Quint, etc. So without further ado, I would like to invite Brother Sayyid Ubaidur Rahman to talk on importance of preserving the Islamic history in India.
Thank you so much. And I've just completed a lecture barely 5 minutes ago. So, how much time do I have?
Up to 20 minutes.
Okay, good. In fact, the topic that has been given to me surprised me. Because if we talk about history or historiography, nobody talks about Tuhfatul Mujahideen. I mean, this is a basic work that should have been on top of the pyramid when we talk about, say, Indian Muslim history. But if you talk people in, say, North India, even in our universities, you don't find many people who are even remotely aware about such an important work. So, the full name of Tuhfatul Mujahideen is Tuhfatul Mujahideen fi Akhbar al-Purtugaliin. It is actually focused on the Malayali Muslims, or say, a struggle against Portuguese occupation, or their struggle to occupy this Malabar area. And the person who authored Hazrat Sheikh Zainuddin, Sheikh Zainuddin was, I mean, if in my opinion, he was an earlier incarnation of Shah Waliullah. He was such a, such a personality, with focus, with vision, and with sort of with expertise to not just touch on those issues that were important, but also have very good relationship with almost all the stakeholders, not just within Malabar, but also around in different sultanates that were ruled by Muslims. I mean, he dedicated this work, Tuhfatul Mujahideen, to the ruler of Bijapur kingdom. And Bijapur, I think, in my opinion, he dedicated this work to Bijapur Sultan Ali Adil Shah because of the fact that he realized that when Bijapur and Golconda and Ahmednagar, they can join hands and go and sort of destroy a formidable power in that part of the region. I'm talking about Vijayanagaram kingdom. Why the people in Malabar cannot withstand the onslaught of this Portuguese? Another important thing about the struggle of Malayalis, or say the people in Malabar against Portuguese, was because of the fact that Sheikh Zainuddin was very well aware of how they had destroyed the Muslim community in Goa. When Portuguese attacked Goa, it was ruled by Bijapur kingdom. And they not just destroyed the community, because it was the ruling community there at the time. They completely dismantled the Muslim institutions. They're destroying mosques, destroying khanqahs, decimating Muslim colleges and schools. So it was complete destruction. So Sheikh Zainuddin was aware that if these colonial powers, they are able to have a foothold in their part of the world, they will ultimately do what they did in Goa. So this book not just talk about the Muslims alliance or the Muslims struggle or the Malayalis struggle against Portuguese. He was actually a person who was very one of the greatest supporters of Kunjali Marikkars. Kunjali Marikkars, they were actually if I talk about in modern terms, they were the admirals or the complete. They were the navy of the rulers of Malabar region. So he tried his best to rally the people, the Muslim or all the others people in the region against Portuguese, and because he knew that these were the people who were actually they were the most prominent power who could take on the Portuguese. Therefore, he sort of supported them. So Tuhfatul Mujahideen is important because of numerous things. It is one of the first books by a Malayali about the history of Kerala, first of all. Another important thing is that it is a very important documentation or very important document as far as the conversion or the arrival of Muslims to Malabar is concerned. The third is that how he tried to sort of raise the Muslims or the people within the region against the Portuguese. So as far as the first two things are concerned, he tried to give to provide complete leadership to the community there, trying to sort of help them gain resources and sort of other important things to counter the onslaught of the Portuguese there. So when we talk about the arrival of Islam in Malabar, the important thing is that most of people, they begin with the conversion of Chairman Perumal, the king of Malabar at the time. So there are many theories about how he converted. Some of the theories, they sort of talk about his conversion during the time of the Prophet Muhammad itself. So there are some stories that he went to the Mecca itself and sort of met the Prophet. But Sheikh Zainuddin, he says that in his opinion, the king converted when not during the lifetime of the Prophet, but in the 8th century itself. So I mean, for me also, this is very important because some authors, some historians in recent times, they have tried to sort of completely destroy this theory that there was a king called Chairman Perumal who converted, and on the contrary, they talk about that this is sort of assumption by almost the followers of our religion in Malabar. But he says that even common people in the region, they believe that the king converted. So if we are talking about the history of Malabar, this is something that is the most important document and everybody should sort of talk about it. So for me, it is personally very important that the other books is sort of working on it and sort of trying to bring out such an important document and also making it accessible in different format to all the people. So when talking about the conversion of Chairman Perumal, Sheikh Zainuddin says, a party of Jews and Christians with their family in a big ship entered one of the seaports of Malabar named Kodungular, where its king resided. They secured from the king grants of land, gardens, houses, and settled there. Some years later, they arrived at Kodungular, a party of Muslim faqirs with a sheikh intent on pilgrimages to the footprint of our father Adam in Snan, Sri Lanka. When the king heard about their arrival, he sent for them, entertained them, and made kind inquiries of them. Their sheikh informed him of our Prophet Muhammad, the tenets of the religion of Islam, and the miracle of the splitting of the moon. Allah, glory be to him, and exalted be he, had caused to enter in his mind the truth of the mission of the Prophet, and the king believed in him. The affection for the Prophet took possession of his heart. So the king of Kodungulur requested the Sheikh that he and his companions should return to him after their pilgrimage to the footprint of Adam. So this is what he says, and he says that, what he has written, it shows that he actually, Chairman Perumal, he did not convert during the lifetime of the Prophet, and then it were later day faqirs or scholars who came and sort of who told him about the splitting of moon of or Shaq al-Qamar. Then he says that a king went to Arabia along with those people, and after some time he realized that he should go back and sort of work on spreading the word of God or Islam to local people in Malabar. But he was not able to come back because he died. He sort of he fell ill and died there. And then he asked the people who had taken him there to go back and sort of spread Islam. And people, as I'm talking to most of the people who are from Kerala, they're very well aware about the stories of Malik bin Dinar, Malik ibn Habib, Sharaf ibn Malik, and all those things. So I shouldn't talk about them in detail here. But as far as people in North India or in other parts of the country are concerned, this is something that, not many people have heard about the book Tuhfat al-Mujahideen. And despite, we talk about Tarikh-e-Farishta. Tarikh-e-Farishta is an important document, but similar importance must be accorded to Tuhfat al-Mujahideen itself, because not just its documents, the history of Malabar or the history of Muslims in Malabar, but also because it documents how during the Portuguese sort of efforts to take over the Malabar region. Makhtoom, while talking about, I talk about there's the conversion of the king, and when he converted, because there are many people who talk about that the king actually converted during the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad. But Makhtoom himself says, as for the exact date, there is no certain information with us. Most probably, it must have been 200 years after the Hijrah, 822 AD of the Prophet. But the opinion in general circulation among the Muslims of Malabar is that the conversion to Islam of the king mentioned above took place at the time of the Prophet. Upon the monarchs perceiving on a night the splitting of the moon, he set out on a journey to visit the Prophet and had the honor of meeting him. He was returning to Malabar with a group of men mentioned before. So another important aspect of what this Hazrat Makhtoom has written, and we must also talk about them, because this is also something that not many people in the rest of the country know. Because the Kunjali Malakkars, they were actually the role they played within not just Malabar, but against colonial efforts to take control of India. When we talk about the naval powers of the Muslim rulers in India, or the naval powers from medieval age, nobody talks about what the Kunjali Malakkars did. Kunjali Malakkars was a traditional the admirals of the Zamorids were called Kunjali Malakkars. And there were four in a period of over 100 years, almost 100 years. And for 100 years, these people continued to strive to sort of keep the Portuguese at arm's length from India. And despite the fact that Portuguese enjoyed an overwhelming sort of superiority, as far as their ships. They had huge ships, they had better armaments, and because they had fought from Europe to Asia in different places. So they thought that this Malabar too would be sort of very easy for them to sort of conquer. But for close to 100 years, they continued to fight. And in that aspect, I think that without the support of Sheikh Maktoum, Sheikh Zainuddin Maktoum, Marakkaz would not have been able to get the sort of support it needed to fight such an important enemy. So, had Zamorin not sort of gone with the Portuguese towards the end of 16th century, I think that the things would have been different, and the Marakkaz might have been able to sort of defeat the Portuguese, because the Portuguese on their own, without the support of Zamorin, they were never able to support to sort of completely dismantle the navy of that was run by Kunjali Marakkaz. An important aspect is that in North India, we completely don't know anything about either the history of Kerala or history of what the exploits of the people like Kunjali Marakkaz, and the navy they sort of built on their own without much sort of having great resources. We also don't know that Kunjali Marakkaz, they have been celebrated by Indian Navy in different ways. In Bombay, a very important naval academy was named after Kunjali Marakkaz. And unfortunately, a decade or 8 years ago, the name of that academy was changed, and there was no rumor at all, not a whimper of protest against the renaming of that academy. Then a very important warship of India was named after Kunjali Marakkaz. That too the name has been changed. I mean, I'm not talking about how due to political reason or otherwise reasons, but nobody talked about why the name was changed. Nobody protested that why these people who have sort of given sacrifices for the country against colonial rules, why their name should be removed from our navy and all those things. But even now, if you Google Kunjali Marakkaz, one of the very important sort of mentions that you get, Google will lead you to Indian Navy website, where they have very detailed account of Kunjali Marakkaz and how they did and what they did for the country and how they fought off the Portuguese onslaught against Malabar. So this is an important chapter of not just the Muslims in the country, but the country as a whole, and we should celebrate the Kunjalis, their naval exploits, and what they did for the country. Unfortunately, there is complete lack of interest as far as North India is concerned about the history of, say, Malabar, due to historic reasons. And also, I mean, I am sort of very amazed that even in Malabar, in Kerala, the people, when the names were changed, nobody talked about them. I tried to Google how was the reaction as far as the change of name of Naval Academy in Mumbai. Nobody protested. No mention in Malayalam newspapers. Or if there was, it might have been sort of one column story inside page. So Maktoum, Sheikh Zainuddin's book, not just is an account, a very important account and very authentic account of the arrival of Arabs and conversion of the local kings and the conversion of a local population and the spread of Islam in the region. It is also a very good account of how a community and how four generals, they tried to stop the Portuguese from taking control of Malabar. And I'm very happy that the other books is trying its best to spread such material from of very important historic importance to people not just in India but also around the world. And it's very welcome that from Canada Forum, we are talking about this important sort of document. Thank you very much. Shukriya.
Thank you, Ubaid Bhai. As you rightly mentioned, there is a huge ignorance regarding the Malabar Muslims. In fact, it's not surprising that people in North India and other parts of the world would be surprised to know that there are Muslims living in South India. So that is definitely one of the reasons why we decided to launch Tuhfatul Mujahideen, like you rightly mentioned, and Brother Ausaf mentioned in the beginning. This is just one part of the book of Zainuddin Makhdoom series, and inshallah we are planning to bring on more books. And like both of the speakers emphasized, whether it be the Dalit history or the Indian Muslim history, it is high time at this point we preserve these kinds of documents and titles internationally, as we all know what is going on in India, trying to erase these lesser heard voices. Having said that, I think it's time to conclude, and I would like to thank everyone for taking this time out on a Saturday to join us for this virtual launch. I would also like to thank all those who joined, our personal special guests who accepted our invitation. I think most of you are here. Dr. Wilson Chaco Jacob from Concordia University, Professor Jose Abraham from Fullerton, Brother Vijay from Southern, and Brother Taha Gayur from Justice for All. Before I end the event, I would like to ask everyone, whoever joined this event, we are still, Other Books International is starting and we are still in an infancy phase. I have spoken to most of you who have joined to reach out. Our website is otherbooks.ca, and you can reach out to me personally at info@otherbooks.ca, and on the website you can also find the business WhatsApp for ideas. We are trying to not only publish, but also looking for creative ideas to bring these kind of lesser known topics and ideas to the publics through the latest forms of multimedia like reels, podcasts. And having said that, I would once again like to thank everyone for joining us. I hope we all learned something today and we are motivated from the lessons we have learned. And thank you, and have a good evening or rest of the day from whichever part of the world you're joining from.
Thank you. Jai Bhim.
No worries, Jai Bhim.